Hello and welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. It's Konstantin here, and here is
Becky.
Number 41. Bunch of news before the Z9 release.
So much news.
We starting to get a drips and drops of Z9 information. One picture leaks there, some specifications leak somewhere else, and then Nikon India publishes the whole presentation of Z9, so why not?
World's best kept secret.
Let's start from the beginning then.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, we had a leaked picture of the front of Nikon Z9 camera. So that was number one. It shows the camera without the lens. We have a sensor exposed.
Yes, it's a full frame sensor.
It is a full frame sensor. Surprise, surprise. From leaked specifications, we all know that it should be some sort of leaf shutter which will protect the sensor. I assume because this picture is published with the sensor exposed, we will have it either enabled or disabled in the menu.
I would assume so, because it seems a bit weird not to have it as an option. But if it is going to be there, it's going to be a very much needed feature, I think.
You know what the interesting rumor is going around as well, that actually Nikon Z9 will be the first Nikon camera without a mechanical shutter.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I mean, that video with the click, 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 click.
The Z3 teaser, yeah.
Yes, that one. Do you think that's just a manufactured sound then?
Well, according to so many people who actually put the thing in the sound wave, and I thought, I had this idea and I didn't do it. But according to them, they think it's going to be anything between 18 frames to 25 frames. So a lot of people say it could be around 20 frames. So because if you look at the sound wave in your editor, it will have the spikes. So if you slow it down, you'll have the individual spikes for the shutter clicks. So a lot of people have a consensus between 18 and 25 frames per second. You never know.
And then in terms of the actual shutter itself, they think that that's a manufactured sound, not a mechanical click.
Well, you never know. But obviously, if you have a mechanical shutter, then they managed to get the 20, let's say, frames per second with a mechanical shutter, which wasn't possible in the past. But obviously, in DSLRs, we had a mirror going up and down at the same time. So that could be that. But I think it would be a lot easier to do it without mechanical shutter present.
Interesting. Okay. And then from this picture, we can clearly see that there's a function 1, 2, 3 button, and we've got a vertical shutter button, which also seems to indicate that I can see the word ISO printed behind it. So it must have the additional controls, just a replica of what's on the top on the side of the camera.
So you basically have a exposure compensation button, ISO button. I assume there could be a recording button as well. I mean,
people don't record in portrait mode though.
Well, yes and no, because if you look at that thing, and then how do we record with that thing?
It's true. It's all for the Instagram, really, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a fancy way of using Z9 for the gram.
Yeah. I also noticed there's a funny little button on the, I guess it would be the left-hand side of the camera if you're holding the camera. And I wonder what that's for. It's kind of in the same position as the AF.
Yeah, I think it's also focus mode selector, basically. Yeah, I think so. I'm glad that you point in there because we have Z9 physically here. So that's why it's not in the frame, but it is here. So that's why we point in there.
Add the picture of it.
Exactly. And I also like the function button in a location where I assume that if you shoot in a portrait mode, then your finger can still touch the function button.
Yeah, it's true. So we've seen the front of the camera. As you say, Nikon India have actually leaked the entire press release, if it's to be believed. Yeah,
no, it's only 3 pages, but luckily they tell us a lot. So let's look at this press release. So first page of the presentation, it says introducing Z9 unstoppable. So we can skip that one. The next page gives us a first look at 100 to 400 lens.
It's true. It's actually got the lens on there. So the 100 to 400 is kind of, by the looks of things, it's about the same size as the 70 to 200. If the size of the camera is, it's the same proportions.
It's a little bit thicker though, but size-wise, it's about the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It says world's first 8K 60p, so that's obviously video.
That's pretty good, isn't it? 8K at 60 frames per second without overheating. So there's some asterisks 1 and 2 there, so we don't know what the limitations are. Question is what it is. Do we have a certain time limitation? Let's say, is it 1 hour, let's say, instead of 2 hours recording or something like this? And number 2, we don't really know. So who knows what's there under asterisk 2, but also...
Maybe it's like in a crop mode or something.
Oh, you're right. There could be a crop Oh, so not fully full frame.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, who knows? We're guessing here. So double coat on optical low pass filter. Didn't actually know what that meant.
Yeah, so I assume low pass filter is on the sensor.
Yes.
Why would you have a double coat? Is it some sort of like a nail polish thing or?
I don't know. I mean, I truly don't know why you would have two coats. I don't know why you would have a coated low pass filter even. I'm sure that someone will explain it to us.
That's true. So this is a mystery. So we will watch this space. And then let's go to the next page. And it says world's fastest scan rate. So I assume that's a scan rate of the sensor and 120 frames per second continuous shooting. So let's go to the scan rate. We talked about that because obviously, in order for us to record 8K 60 frames per second, we need to have a really fast readout. In order for us to have a really, a real-time tracking in autofocus, we also need to have a fast readout. So I assume that's to do with the sensor and just the amount of data it can read and write and also dissect in a way for autofocus system.
Yeah, exactly. 120 frames per second continuous shooting.
What's your bet? Is it 1080p, 4K? What's your bet?
But 120 frames per second, isn't it stills?
I'm puzzled about the stills. I mean, if it would be stills, it definitely then wouldn't be at full resolution. So I assume maybe if you're shooting 45 frames per second, that would be quite a lot of data. But maybe if you have a reduced resolution file or JPEG, then it is possible. Now, if you talk about video, then 120 frames per second would be, I think 1080p would be too easy. I hope it's going to be 4K since camera can handle so much data at 8K 60 frames.
Yeah.
So technically, 4K is smaller. You can increase the frame rate. I personally think it's probably will be that.
Awesome. All right, next up we have, according to this, Nikon's first multi-axis tilting monitor, which we saw a little hint at in one of the teasers, didn't we? So it looks like it tilts both that way and that way.
Yeah, you know when I was saying, have a look at GFX 100S, because it's very similar design. It's actually not, because GFX 100S doesn't do that. It only goes up about maybe 45 degrees.
Oh.
This one goes full on 90.
Yeah.
And that is very interesting. So imagine the possibilities from which angles, various angles you can shoot from. I think it's pretty good. So we have it tilted up, down, left, right, you name it.
Yeah, I do miss the portrait tilty mode. It would be tilty mode. That's a technical term for it. So this is going to be an interesting addition. It also says 20 frames per second raw with continuous shooting.
Here we go. So disregard that guessing 5 seconds ago that we talked about. So it is 20 frames per second raw continuous shooting.
Excellent.
It's pretty fast, isn't it?
It is. So that, again, from the teaser where they showed that clip of the sports photographer shooting continuously, that was the clue.
Absolutely. And obviously, if you got 20 frames per second with full-on autofocus tracking, that's going to be pretty good. Obviously, that video with that presentation has been removed and only 3 pages are available. If you want to see a short clip of those, they're not available on YouTube anymore. But Nikon Rumours has some link in the comment sections. So if you go there, go to the sections, you can find that video if you want to.
So let's go to the comments and the feedback from that leaked information that we've seen.
Absolutely. So a lot of people got in touch with Nikon Rumours. Could be random people, could be people connected with manufacturing process in Asia. And there's some quotes that we heard of. So one guy says, heard from a guy who handled the Z9 this week. He was totally blown away at all levels. Well, funny thing is my uncle said the same.
I love it. It's like, I heard from a guy who handled the Z9.
I know a guy who knows a guy whose brother knows another guy. And he overheard in Tesco while shopping for noodles that guy handles Z9.
That's right. Another comment says, and this is no catch-up game from Nikon. It's surpassing the competition with huge margins. Exclamation mark.
I like that.
Yeah.
The price of Nikon Z9 is going to be a surprise of the positive one.
Okay.
Does it tell us that the price is actually will be lower than what we expect?
I don't know. I mean, we have guessed anything from 6.5 to 7K in the past.
That's true. And we have based this estimate on several things. So looking at the past, price of D5 and D6, the price have increased with the release of the camera. So D6 was released at 6299. So our estimation would be around the same price. Now, if you look at the price of A1, which is a Sony PlayStation flagship, I think its price is $6.5 in UK, including VAT. So our estimation was around that mark. Now, with this quote expected to be a positive surprise, it tells me that it's possibly will be lower.
If it's a pleasant surprise, then yes, it could be. Maybe it'll be 5995 or something.
6199.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing what the price is whenever it does come out. I think if it's a positive surprise, then that usually indicates it's going to be cheaper.
I'll tell you a story from a video game. As obviously all our viewers, they love video games when we talk about them. Remember when Xbox One and PS4 was released?
Yeah.
E3, which is a big video game expo, I think it's in LA every June. And then all the big players like Microsoft and Sony, they would have their press conferences. So day one, Microsoft comes out and says, we have Xbox One, it's $499.
Yeah.
The next day, PlayStation conferences, and they say, we have PS4, new console is $399. And they drop the mic.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's going to be a PlayStation moment.
Yeah.
Not going to name the brand, but is it a PlayStation moment for Nikon? You never know.
No, who knows?
So a couple more things to add. So according to Nikon Rumors, it will be heavier than Canon R3, which is 1 kilo and 20 grams. So it should be 300 grams heavier. So 1.3 kilos, still not too bad.
No, they also did say that the viewfinder resolution is supposed to be 3.69 megapixels, which is better, I think, than what we've had.
It's pretty good, yeah. Talking about readout on the sensor, so according to Nikon Rumors, Sony A1 readout is 5 milliseconds, while Nikon Z9 is supposed to be 4 milliseconds, so it's 1 millisecond faster. And actually,
all the difference.
Well, if you think about milliseconds, if you look at 100-meter runners,
yes.
Even shaving off, let's say, half a millisecond, that's a big plus, it's a big record for the runners. So I assume that actually if you compare 4, 5 and 4, it's basically 20% being shaved off in terms of time.
Yeah. It's a considerable amount.
Absolutely. I mean, all of them are really fast, but it's pretty good. Speaking of Canon R3 and Sony launched A7 Mark IV camera, which is priced at £2,400 in the United States. And what's good about them? They're both sport cameras. What's not so good about them? Well, compared to Z9, they are not as good as Z9, but obviously Z9 is a lot more expensive. But the main thing is obviously resolution, autofocus speed, and other things we all need to see in the test when they're going to come out. Anything you want to add, Tilly?
It's designed to be a different beast altogether.
Absolutely. I think Z9 will compete with A1. And obviously good for Sony to release the cheaper option for the people who are waiting. And that's what a lot of Nikon people will start to wait. Well, Z9 is out now.
Yeah.
I want my Z8 eventually. Let's wait for that and complain, obviously. So, but... But it's interesting to see, and obviously R3 has a 24 megapixel sensor, so it's also kind of designed to be very fast camera, but it's not an R1, which eventually will come out. So it seems like that Canon is the last brand now who is kind of waiting to release their flagship and mirrorless.
Yeah, maybe they're waiting for Nikon to do the Z9 so that they can do the R1.
Well, it's an interesting one because remember when A1 came out and people said, they're delaying Z9 because obviously they're looking at specs of A1 and they need to change something. So we're going to say about R1 the same thing. Look at Z9 specifications, and then R1 is going to be delayed because they're going to change something. To be honest with you, a lot of those things, like specification of the future cameras, are set in stone at least 6 months before the release.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have something in the pipeline. Maybe they may change something that is very quick to change, so probably something like software-based.
Yeah.
Hardware-based, not so much, because a lot more process goes into that.
Yeah.
So let's go to the lenses then. According to Nikon Rumors, Nikon is expected to announce at least 2 lenses. So first one, let's talk about, that's the picture we have of now, is 100-400 lens.
Yeah.
We have a picture of it now. It looks about the same size as 70-200 lens.
Assuming that is the replacement or Z equivalent of the 80-400 in the F-mount range. So again, that lens is not much bigger and heavier than the 70-200, but has all that range. So it would probably be variable aperture.
So 4.5 to 5.6. And yeah, it does look a little bit thicker than 70-200. Probably will be a tiny bit heavier because I assume there will be more lens elements inside. So generally this type of design do require for a little bit more glass going into them.
Did they say that there were going to be any other lenses or just the 100-400?
Well, Nikon Rumors thinks that there will be 400 2.8 development announcement on the day.
Right.
400 2.8 development announcement. I don't see why not, because obviously it is a big camera announcement. A lot of people call it a D3 moment. And let me remind you about D3 moment. So D3 moment was when D3 was announced. Nikon didn't have a full-frame camera. So a lot of people complained. They say, I'm going to switch to Canon because they have a full-frame camera, and Nikon doesn't.
Yeah.
The flagships from Nikon at the moment were D2X and D2H cameras. D2X was a studio camera, and D2H was a sports camera.
That's right.
With only 4-megapixel sensor.
Yes.
So when Nikon announced D3 at 12-megapixel full-frame, a lot of people say that is the best full-frame camera currently available on the market. And we actually, from ourselves, we saw people switching from Canon and going back to Nikon. That's what people call a D3 moment.
Yeah.
If it's going to be a D3 moment again, or, well, we shall wait and see. Hopefully not long enough.
Yeah.
But I definitely hope so.
I hope so too. So, okay, so we got the 100 to 400, that's it?
Yeah, 400 developments. I think, they may announce FTZ Mark II. My thinking about FTZ Mark II, and maybe I'm wrong, I hope to be wrong, because my hope was that they would release a D-lens support. Now, with all the information popping up, it looks like that all they will do is effectively maybe drop that bump at the bottom and may potentially improve the autofocus. You never know, but we saw on the teaser of FTZ that people were using f-mount lenses, and I think the idea of that was that you can use this flagship Z camera and you have a cutting-edge performance, autofocus performance with f-mount lenses as well as Z-mount lenses.
Yeah, and it was that rather than, here's a sneak peek of the FTZ II sort of thing.
Exactly. So my thinking about this right now is that we won't see D-lens support. It's going to be more of a kind of a streamlined update. So will it increase the price or not? We never know, but I think for people who use D-lens, they may need to wait a bit more.
Fair enough.
With more information coming out about Z9 cameras, we now have photographers who were secretly using Z9 before, not telling anyone. Well, NDA, I guess.
Yeah.
They now openly say that, actually, no, I have that camera.
Yeah, Morten Hilmer is apparently using the Z9 in Svalbard in Norway. So Svalbard is a Norwegian archipelago between mainland Norway and the North Pole. One of the world's northernmost inhabited areas, it's known for its rugged, remote terrain of glaciers and frozen tundra sheltering polar bears, Svalbard reindeer and Arctic foxes. So,
do you think it's cold out there?
I think it's a bit nippy, yeah, as they say. That is an ideal place to test this camera, right? If it's a...
I mean, the weather ceilings for sure. I mean, Sony had their photographers test their cameras in Hawaii.
Oh, nice.
I personally would like to go to Hawaii myself, but since I'm a Nikon user, I will be shipped to the North Pole.
Now, the video that has come up on YouTube, it shows a pro body. Does it show the Z9?
Well, he kind of, what he did is, you can see a slightly pixelated image.
Right.
And then he actually came out on Instagram and posted that picture.
Oh, I
so
see.
everyone knows that it's Z9.
Yeah.
And he basically says, well, wait for my next video. But as a warm-up, I would recommend you to see his video right now, because that thing looks cool.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I think it's perfect. It's perfect statement of saying, yes, this is camera for the pros.
Yeah.
There's no funny business about it. There's no models to be photographed in the hotels or something. No, go outside.
Yeah.
Go to Mars, experience the nature.
In the minus 30 degrees. We've also had some speculation that Olympics photographers were using the Z9. Obviously, that's where we got that first sneak peek of a prototype, including the likes of Joe McNally. We don't have any confirmation that they were using them. We don't have a kind of personal, yes, I was using this camera, but I do suspect that there are some serious pros out there using it.
If things go well, and on 28th of October, we'll get the camera announced, I'm sure we'll see a flood of different videos from a lot of photographers who had the camera and they were just keeping quiet and not telling us. So get ready for 28th, plus minus 1 day. So I would say from Wednesday, pack your lunch, be ready for the internet.
Sit in front of your computer.
Absolutely. But I'm definitely going to keep that F5 button pressed at 120 frames per second.
Excellent.
Whew. Z9 coverage is finished, so I'm sure there will be more news coming out soon.
Here's hoping.
Let's go to some other news.
Other news. So in other news, the ZFC and the 105 f2.8 MC Z lens both won Comprehensive Gold Award at Digital Camera Grand Prix 2022. So yay for them.
That's pretty good. So that's a Japanese thing. So they have a panel of judges that decide what product is going to win the award. So hooray to Nikon.
Exactly.
And then in some third-party news, remember last week we said that Nikon released 1.3 firmware update for Z6II and Z7II cameras.
Yeah.
Now, Nikon rumor user Andy, I think he said, well, I've got a Techart adapter and I have problem with it. It doesn't work, so I had to downgrade to 1.20.
Yeah.
Now, Techart and Megadap officially came out on their Facebook and said, yes, do not upgrade to 1.3 firmware. Wait for them to test it and see maybe if they will issue an update for their adapters, so then you can freely use 1.3 firmware. And that's the problem with a bit of third-party thing. When people have to reverse engineer things, you may get conflicts with the new firmware update. So let's say you update the official Nikon firmware, then somehow it starts to get conflict with the hardware, and then they need to look and somehow reverse engineer that firmware to implement the improvements there. So as with everything, wait and see. Hopefully they'll release an update in the future.
Exactly. Now for our review section. The NIKKOR Z 40mm f2 lens was reviewed by Richard Wong on his YouTube channel. He said, while it feels a bit budget, it compensates with very good image quality.
Absolutely. I think one of his complaints was obviously no metal mounts at the back, and he was happy to pay extra for that. No lens hood in the box. I guess that's an interesting one. So I guess Nikon will have a lens hood for it.
Yep, it'll be another thing that we have to stock.
Absolutely. And then, yes, there's some third-party hoods available already. I think on our live stream last week, someone said I found a lens hood for about $6 on Amazon.
Well, there you go.
So I personally think that, yes, of course, quality of life improvements like metal mount would be nice. It is priced very attractively, and it will get a lot more people into the system. So in terms of this, I can sacrifice the metal mount for this at $249. It's reasonably priced. And when we have a image quality which actually outperforms the price, it's quite nice to have.
Exactly. We also had a review from DxOMark on the 58mm f/0.95s Noct lens, which is obviously a very expensive premium Z lens. So they tested it, and apparently it's been given the highest score ever achieved and the best sensor/lens combo ever tested.
Yeah, so they tested it with Z7 camera.
Phenomenal. So with the Z7, this is apparently the best sensor and lens combination that they've ever tested, and replaces out the Sigma 85 1.4 art lens combined with the Nikon D850, which was previously the highest scorer. So the actual DxOMark test score is 55, and we'll put a link to that in the description box and the podcast notes, but we've also included the top 5 best lenses according to DxOMark, which is well worth a read.
Fantastic.
Speaking of Sigma lenses, we are now stocking a small selection of Nikon Fit Sigma glass on the Grays of Westminster online shop.
Carefully curated by us.
Yes, so if there is a Sigma lens that you are after, please do let us know, but you can shop the selection that we've actually got in stock on the website now.
Fantastic. And thanks for joining us today.
Yep, thank you very much for watching and or listening. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're on YouTube, or if you're listening on a podcast platform, a follow and perhaps even a review would be very helpful.
Absolutely. We will be carefully monitoring the situation with the Z9 news. And if something breaks, then we will try to get the video out as soon as possible. So stay tuned. Keep an eye on that, and have a look at our Instagram accounts. Where are you, Becky?
Rebecca_Danese for me. And you
I'm at Konstantin Kochkin. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.